have a new training program. For the next 21 weeks, I'll be training with the Average to Savage 2.0 training program that was released by Greg Nuckols over at Stronger by Science. What I'll do is I'll leave links below for both the Average to Savage training program as well as the Stronger by Science website. Great guys over there placing out some amazing information. I rely heavily on that resource, so I highly recommend checking out the website as well as their podcast. But for the next 21 weeks, I will be performing their Average to Savage training program, so super stoked with that. So if you've been following along with the journey, I just wrapped up a training program where I focused on developing my 1-rep max strengths for the squat, bench, and deadlift, the 3 big main movements. I'll leave a playlist here or add a card here or something like that. And that'll allow you to catch up on where I'm at to right now. So with that being said, I always encourage people to have seasons to their training programs. I don't like to try and attack everything at once. I don't want to get stronger, get bigger muscles, and lose weight all at the same time. I'm a big fan of periodization, so for the last 3 months, I focused on developing that 1-rep max strengths to some really good numbers there. And then now I'm focusing on hypertrophy with a shifting over to some more strongman style lifting, moving away from the typical 1-rep max strength building in the big 3 movements. And that's where I think the Average to Savage training program really comes into play here. By the looks of it, it's definitely more of a general strength basis. It is quite a long program, so 21 weeks, about 4 to 5 months time frame. So we're going to be spending the better third of a year with this training program. So I think it's something you should definitely stick with. Just like most training programs, don't stop them halfway through. A lot of them rely on that full length to elicit the training responses that they're wanting to. So I did just wrap up the first week of training. Went really well. I'll throw some clips in towards the end here. But like most training programs, the first week or two is just really going to be getting you acclimatized to the new workout, the new exercises, the new set rep schemes, and just the general workload of that new program. The great thing with the Average to Savage program is that it's very, very flexible. You can do anywhere from 2 to 5 days a week, and it is quite up to the individual to select your secondary movements. They really just program in some main movements there, and then the rest of the day is up to you as to how do you want to fill that out. Because I'm personally doing more hypertrophy, shifting towards bodybuilding style mindset, I'm shifting more away from big, heavier compound movements for those accessory lifts and shifting more towards like isolation work and higher rep work, just to get in a little change in that training stimulus that I've been getting used to, especially with the huge focus on 1-rep max strength for the last 3 months. I really wanted to shift that around and take this time to put on some muscle mass and see how my body can adapt to a bit more higher training volume and less weights. So if you're interested, a couple more basics of the program. It is based on weekly undulation, so I think that's a great way to mitigate the stress. The awesome thing with the program that I'm really finding cool after the first week is that the next week's weights are adjusted based on this week's weights. So you basically start off plugging in your last known 1-rep maxes for certain lifts. The algorithm spits out weights you should use for that rep range for that specific week. But if you don't hit your targets for this week, the following week is going to be adjusted based on those numbers. So I think that's a really great way to stress mitigate and load mitigate. It's one of the first programs that I've seen that actually has like this this feedback that's auto-regulating the program as you go. So if this week I'm super fatigued, next week's hopefully is going to be less fatiguing but allow me to build back up. So it's allowing you to go up and down with your training difficulty to match that week's stress, and based off of last week's stress, hopefully if you picked, it's like I picked some numbers that the weight was a bit too heavy for certain movements this week and weights were a lot lighter for movements this week. So I notice what it's spitting out for me to do next week is that slightly lower numbers for something like the squat and slightly higher numbers for the bench press, where my workload doesn't quite match what I put in initially. So even if you get those numbers slightly off, the program is going to ratchet up or down and regulate itself so that you're picking those right weights for the desired training outcomes, which I think is awesome. And finally, the new concept that the program has introduced is this reps in reserve scale of exertion. So it's very similar to obviously rate of perceived exertion. Is just a different way of framing the same kind of difficulty level. It kind of self-explanatory. Reps in reserve. After you finish the prescribed reps for that exercise, as soon as you rack it, think about how many reps you could have done if you had to go to an RPE 10. So hypothetically, if you prescribe 5 reps with a 3 rep in reserve rating, if I finished those 5 and I could have done, say, 5 more reps because it was my 10 rep max, then that was a 5 RIR. But if I could only get up to 8 in my head, like if I could only think of getting up to 8, then that's a 3 RIR. You can test that out. So for the last couple of sets, or the last set, if you want to see how far you can go, then that'll actually give you your true RIR rating. That's what they do recommend in the training. I kind of equate it to like around a 7 RPE, 6 to 7, 8 up, around that 6 to 8 RPE range, depending on your own conditioning levels and your own ability to tolerate volume. So again, this RIR also plays into effect your capacity for handling workload. And I think that's a cool factor of the program, especially now that I'm focusing more on that hypertrophy goal where volume is more important than intensity. So we're playing in these huge volume sets so that we're able to drive up some more hypertrophy response, and I think that's going to align right nicely with the goal for the next 21 weeks for me personally. But because of the flexibility of the program, if you do want to focus on driving up strength in lower rep ranges, you can definitely tailor that and choose exercises and reps that are going to align more with your goal. So I think it's a really cool program. Awesome thing is that it's actually quite affordable. It starts off at $5 and you can kind of pay what you want. So I think it's a great deal that they're putting out there. Like, the spreadsheet is super flexible, little bare bones, but I think that bare bones allows you to put in that flexibility. So definitely check out the links. I'll throw them below for Stronger by Science. What I'll do right now is flick over to some voiceover and some training compilation to see some of the training over the course of the week. Again, because it is a Predator program, I won't be very specific in the sets or reps. Really just highlighting some of the exercises and some highlights and lowlights over the course of the week. And you'll get an idea of how my training's progressing and how I am feeling about the program. Opening up with some SS yoke squats. If you follow me along, you know that the low bar back squat does aggravate my shoulders, causing some pain that stops me from doing bench pressing and overhead pressing. So I found the SS yoke is a great substitute out. I've actually done a series on the SS yoke barbell. I'll leave a playlist above so that you can check that out. But it does help me manage my pain, and when I do start heavy and frequent squatting, the SS yoke bar does wonders for the shoulder joint, so I highly recommend that. So for the rest of this training program, I'll be doing very minimal back squats, where I'll be just mainly doing front squats and SS yoke squats. Next up on the list is just some dumbbell rows with a incline bench just supporting the chest. Again, with that shift towards of a more hypertrophy focused outcome, doing some isolateral work. Something I've ignored mainly in the past, especially in the last 3 months before this, focusing on the compound movements. I did want to introduce some higher rep unilateral work there, just to even out the body and get some more focus on building up some muscle mass. Here we have some front squats. I'm trying to work on wrist mobility, so I'm not going to be using those wrist strap techniques. I'll just be trying to do a plain front rack position. I'll use some wrist wraps in order to protect my wrists, but we'll see if I can stick with the regular front rack position to build that up. Some bench press, nothing exciting here. Again, with the opening week, we're just basing some weights off of 1 rep maxes that were last tested. But again, your 5 rep max is going to be different to your 1 rep max, and that's going to be different. That's going to lead to different training outcomes and how you feel over the course of the day. And shock horror, here we have some sumo deadlifts. But sumo deadlifts were right. We do regular deadlifts elsewhere in the week. Again, it's great to do both. They both target different muscles. It's like saying, should I do a dumbbell curl or a barbell curl? Don't question it, just do both of them. This way we're activating a bit more hips and a bit more quads with the sumo. It also takes slightly less pressure off of the lower back, so we're able to train a bit more deadlifts over the week without having to stress that lower back. So here we have some farmer carries with 155 pounds in each hand. When the sun's out, you got to take advantage of it. Again, we have this incline driveway of mine, which adds a different training stimulus to the regular farmer carry. So the weight kind of is a little lower than usual, but I do like to work on some speed, getting that uphill stimulus there. And that'll wrap up week 1 of training under the Average to Savage training program. So far, so cool. I mean, definitely first week. Let's see how my how my opinion is about a month or 2 months from now. But that first week's always fun. That new training stimulus, novel program, new sets, reps, new exercises, things of that nature. I'll leave a playlist right here so you can stay tuned with the training progress along the way. I'll be leaving weekly training vlogs so you can stay up to date with that training that I'm currently doing. Hopefully you find it enjoyable and somewhat insightful. This has been Selwyn from Wynn Strength, and remember, a better life through strength.